Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Subnet Show. I'm your host, Gabriel Cardona, and I'm joined, as always, by the man with the most cats in crypto, Connor Daly. What is up, my friend?
You tripped me up today. Hello, everybody. Hey, where's the hey?
Sorry. Hey, everybody.
After 12 weeks or however long it's been,
I think
I'm so used to it.
Yeah, congratulations. I'm pretty sure this is number 12. That's like Connor always gives me this metric. Most podcasts last how many, Connor? Three
episodes.
Yeah, so we're killing it by that metric. And we've got such a good lineup of guests now. I just recently reached out to a bunch of people I've worked with in the past and I'm currently working with. We've got some absolute block stars on board and on deck. So that brings me to, of course, our guest today. We have the director of DeFi from Avalanche, Luigi. I will let you do the honor of your last name so I don't butcher it.
Yeah, it's DeNorio DeMeo.
There you go. Welcome to the Subnet Show, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Gabriel. Thanks, Connor. It's really exciting to be here with you guys today and enjoy working with you, and also look forward to kind of diving into some of these topics today.
Say before we get started, I just want to start with a little bit of housekeeping. For anybody watching on YouTube that doesn't normally make it to the end, I'm going to say this a little earlier today. We are now on podcast services around the globe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, RSS feeds, you name it. This episode is available there. So check us out while you're driving or whatever you like to do. Also, look down, look to the left of your screen. Look at the logo. It's different. The Subnet Show has a new logo, a little bit more professional looking, got some Avalanche red in there. It should be looking pretty good. And we're updating our branding across all of the different channels. And we're really excited about that. We're always looking at ways to improve the show, add more production quality, things like that. So there will be more improvements being rolled out in the next few weeks. But yeah, this is hopefully the first of many things improving the quality of life.
Well said. Well said. So as I mentioned, we've got a really, really special guest today. We have Luigi, who is the director of DeFi, which before I even go any farther, I just wanted to say, I really think that is like maybe one of the coolest titles I've heard in a long time, man. I'm not usually like starstruck, but director of DeFi at Avalanche, that's pretty hot, dude. That's pretty hot.
Yeah, when I saw it on the job description, I didn't know whether to take it seriously or, whether I was like, okay. But no, it turned out to be a really cool gig, and I'm really happy to have it.
Yeah, dude, you have been destroying it. Our DeFi ecosystem has absolutely exploded since you've come, and I know you were one of the primary architects on the Avalanche Rush project, which of course we're going to definitely dive into. I just wanted to, a big sort of format of our show is that we like to hear people's crypto journey and their crypto vision, because it's always interesting to see like what path brought people to crypto, right? Because people just come from every different place, and there's so much opportunity. The opportunity space is so huge, and there's so many problems to solve that it's like endless opportunity. And so I'm always interested in people's journeys. So as much as you can, or however much you want to, give us a sense of what was your crypto journey like, man? What brought you to Ava Labs? What were you doing prior to this? And sort of how did you stumble into crypto in general?
Yeah, sure. So my career really started in financial services, really TradFi. I worked at Citigroup for about 7 years, trading various instruments. Like I traded credit default swaps on an institutional desk, interest rate swaps, and equity. So it was a true market maker, trading with the largest hedge funds, central banks, etc. And always really had a passion for markets in general and econ. And, I think it was 2012 or 2013 was when I first heard of Bitcoin. I bought my first Bitcoin. I think it was around $120. And and rode it all the way up to like 1,200. Nice. And then Apple Pay came out, and I sold all the Bitcoin because I was like, nah, no way they could compete with this. Sure. So I completely misunderstood the thesis, sold the Bitcoin, got lucky because Mt. Gox happened. It went straight down and, put it aside for a few years and was just like, okay, we'll see what happens here. And while I was continuing my Wall Street career at that time, a good friend of mine was getting very involved in the Ethereum ecosystem in 2015 and 16. And he started bringing me to all the meetups, all the conferences. I got to hang out with a lot of people that have, who are now hold, very good roles in that space. And I really started to fall in love with, what was possible with smart contracts, what you can do in terms of all these decentralized applications. And so I started to really dive deeper. And in 2017, I basically co-founded my own startup, which was called Proof, which was essentially a decentralized protocol to help solve misinformation online. So like a fake news type thing. And we raised the VC round over $1 million, and we were building it on a chain called our chain. Our chain was a unique chain that had some issues, but had some really cool architecture and a very complicated functional programming language called Rolang, using the row calculus. And suffice it to say, building this application on that chain that was not yet live was an interesting experience, as a co-founder. So we learned a lot in that experience. Number one, just that the infrastructure for blockchains just wasn't there at the time to be building these types of applications. Right? It wasn't no Uniswap. There wasn't any, real true Chainlink oracles or all the things you really need, right? And, from that experience, though, I realized how important it was to have a scalable and fast blockchain, right? And it was around that time where I kind of moved on from that startup, where essentially like all these other scalable layer ones started coming out, Avalanche being one. And Avalanche, when the consensus paper dropped, was one that was always intrigued me. I was kind of fascinated by the consensus, really, and to see it come to fruition in the mainnet that dropped in September 2020. It was like, to me, it all came together, and I was like, wow, this could actually be something fascinating. And then to see like the EVM come as a part of the Avalanche, I was like, wow, like this is a really nice showcase for this technology, and like I could see this getting some traction. And it was also around that time I was getting very involved in DeFi, and where DeFi really started to explode. It was actually a little bit before then, around when Compound dropped and Uniswap and then Sushi did their thing. So started getting very involved in DeFi naturally, given my background in finance and markets. It was a natural fit for me to get involved. So became a very avid DeFi user, personally, and leveraged a lot of the relationships I had just being in that community, in that ecosystem for a long time, and was able to learn a lot about that space. And then while I was doing all this, I saw that Alva Labs was looking for somebody in this space, and just sort of introduced myself and was able to talk to people here. Talked to John Nahas and a bunch of other people, and it seemed to be a good fit for both sides, and was able to join. And it's been sleepless ever since. So yeah, that's like sort of my background to kind of like how I got here. I'm probably leaving out a good amount of things, but in terms of like crypto vision, that's an interesting one. I think Web3, that's usually the terminology I use. Web3 is going to be incredibly massive. And I think just naturally speaking, Web3 is a really great accelerator for networks, right? So, if you think about what's happened with technology over the last like 15 years, we've created a lot of these shared economy applications, which are really cool. Like you have Airbnb, Uber, Facebook, all these different applications where networks is where the value lied. Well, what's really unique about Web3 is like the whole value of that is the network. And it's a really great bootstrapping mechanism to start a network. Whereas those shared economies, like the bootstrap Uber, and Airbnb, like those guys were selling cereal boxes. That was a really hard thing to do back then. Now you have liquidity mining, airdrops, there's the token that contains value. These are all these things you can do in the space So I think that this is going to be the internet effectively of value, right? Where we're going to be able to decentralize all those shared economy type plays, shared economy type corporations, and rather than the value sitting in an LLC or a corporation, that the stakeholders will change. Whereas the stakeholders right now are shareholders of like a for-profit corporation, the stakeholders will now become the actual participants of the network, right? So if it's Uber, the driver and the riders now are holding a lot more of the value from creating the network rather than just the VCs who got it in the beginning. Like, I see that as being the model going forward, and actually it's a much more efficient and elegant model than what currently exists. And hopefully that's kind of where we can take this more mainstream in the future.
Awesome.
That was a wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so I think we do want to note you are the first non-engineer to make it on the pod. So this is a really exciting opportunity for us. And hearing about your background, like coming from traditional finance, I think we're very much on the kind of the same page for what we think crypto is capable of. But I think we want to talk about a little bit of your expertise, some of the things that Gabriel and I are not as good at. We want to talk about the business side. I get asked all the time, do I have to be a dev to get into crypto? And I say, no, there's tons of opportunities for social media, community management, marketing, business. And so hopefully today we can highlight some of the other things that are going on besides the dev work, besides being in the trenches, writing Solidity code, writing Avalanche JS and the like. So what does it mean to be the director of DeFi? I guess, what are your main responsibilities? Like what kind of things do you do in your day-to-day? Like what are you responsible for?
Sure. So it's evolving with every day, but let's just say for the most part, the role is kind of split up in two ways. There's a true business development part of the role where I'm literally evaluating tons of projects constantly over and over, calls all day long, learning about new projects, either trying to get them to deploy their applications on Avalanche or even incubating them. Like there's been projects that come to us that are just a PowerPoint deck. And then there's projects that come to us that are, so like there's projects that come to us that are just like a PowerPoint deck. And there's projects that come to us that are, deployed on 4 other chains. So it's it's essentially my job and the team's job that helps me and assists me to evaluate these projects, see whether or not what support we can provide in terms of them deploying on Avalanche. Also trying to see whether or not we could support them right from the get. Right, they don't even have a team yet. How can we help nurture them, incubate them, get them to deploy natively on Avalanche, which is actually a really important phenomenon for us. But that's really the business development.
Before you move on, just really quick, I'm just curious, what makes a really successful proposal for one of these things? What are the things you like to see?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, a few things. My background, just starting one of these things in the past helps there a lot because you can go through a lot of mental loops just in terms of tokenomics, incentive design, which Connor, I'm sure you have some really nice experiences with. But yeah, so what I like to look for is a few things. I like to look for that the general technology and the approach at a high level makes sense, right? I'm not a developer. I'm not going to read the code, but I'll have a good sense of whether or not it makes sense what they're doing. Then we'll take a look at the tokenomics to make sure those make sense. You could have the best technology in the world in crypto, but if your tokenomics are not good, good luck. So we'll look at that quick, too.
We're going to keep going down levels because every single phone we're going to nested list items here, but
sure.
So is good tokenomics relative, or is there general broad strokes that you can?
Definitely relative. It depends on what you're doing.
Sure.
For example, if it's just an airdrop, who you're airdropping to, who are the holders of the token that you're airdropping to, what are the likelihood to maintain that? Is there any lockup? There's all these various incentives that you need to think through, and you also need to think through the timing of them. For example, a project that is doing liquidity mining right off the get to kind of emit their token out. You need to think through how much you're emitting versus the amount of liquidity that you expect there to be, right? So that, you know, this way you're not oversaturating the market with liquidity in the beginning. Like these are all, you know, projections and assumptions that have to be made, but they're very important. And there's some big no-nos to do, like depending on the application, in terms of, you know, who the holders might be in the beginning versus, and how locked up that they are. All those things are, you know, have to be well thought out. So we'd like to hear some good thoughts on that. The other thing is, and one of the more important things is go to market strategy. You know, building an application, you get the best thing in the world, also even great tokenomics. But if you don't have a good go to market strategy, it's going to be hard to get noticed. There's a lot of noise in crypto, and you know, attention spans are very low. So being able to you know, have a go-to-market strategy that can, you know, leverage the right marketing resources, leverage the right partners, you know, all that gives you a better chance to actually succeed right off the bat. And you really do want to succeed quickly. You know, longer the thing sits there stale, the less the likelihood that it will take off. At least that's been my experience in the past.
Okay, so
yeah,
we had a list item. Now I think we bumped back to the top item, which was your day. What does a day look like?
Yes. So yeah, like I was saying, the role is like split from like that's the business development part of the role. The other part of the role is really strategy around DeFi. So how, like, you know, we could use Avalanche Rush as an example for this, but that's one part of, like, you know, building the strategy for what we want to do in DeFi. For Avalanche. What that means is, okay, we have what we think is really great technology. You know, we have what we think is a great bridge. We think, you know, we have, you know, API nodes and infrastructure that is sufficient to actually, you know, have a great user experience. Mm-hmm. So now that we have all these things, you know, the question is, okay, well, we need people to use it now. And how do we get them to do that? Well, you know, liquidity mining in DeFi has always been an incredibly effective mechanism. Compound did it well. Other layer one chains have done it well. So that's one way to get users over to try your chain, right? And you know, that's like the other part of the role is designing, you know, how we might want this ecosystem to look going forward. So it's really like a half strategy, half biz dev's role. So my day really entails talking to projects all day long, talking to projects that want to participate in Avalanche Rush, and talking through projects that are already deployed and helping them, you know, further build their presence, whether that be other introductions to other projects or infrastructure partners, or getting feedback from our developers. You know, or, you know, putting them in touch with various marketing resources. So we're really like the you know, I'm really kind of like the, I guess, intersection of product, marketing, engineering, everything.
An amazing role, man. You really are stoked. And when he says talks to teams all day, he means talks to teams all day, man. Like, it's an insane amount of team churn that is going through the Avalanche ecosystem right now. If anybody's watching this and wants to get a sense of what's going on, a lot is going on. There are endless teams that I myself talk to every day, so I can imagine what your day looks like.
Yeah, it's and it's really stepped up since the announcement of Avalanche Rush. Like before, you know, we'd have like a nice set of calls going every day, but now it's like, you know, we're trying to, you know, we scaled up the team nicely so to get additional help, but we're also trying to take some, you know, conversations asynchronously, just because we cannot, like, even humanly handle the amount of calls that are happening right now, which is a good thing to happen, but you know, we're trying to figure it out.
How do you balance trying to work with existing players potentially on other chains and like bringing them to Avalanche versus supporting native projects, if those native projects are forks of those existing projects, or if those are kind of like from scratch initiatives? What is your thinking there?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question, right? It's actually a really hard one. So I like to think of it in a few ways. I always want to support native projects, because my view is that the value to the layer one is most pronounced with a native project, especially in DeFi, because that essentially means that the governance lives on your chain. And when the governance lives on your chain, that's ultimately where the value is. Like, for example, with Curve living on Ethereum as a native project there, you need to move to Ethereum, buy CRV in order to do any voting for their gauges, right? So that's always good for Ethereum to have that as a native project. And so we always want to have native project. We want to encourage innovation on our chain. Ultimately, in the long term, that's what's going to build true value. In terms of balancing that with bringing other projects over, well, bringing other projects over, from my perspective, solves two problems. One, it solves like a Lego piece problem. Are we missing this primitive, so to speak, in DeFi? Like, is it an options protocol, and will it be the first that we have? Or for Curve, for example, will it help solve some stablecoin liquidity issues that we might have? So, I like to think of the Lego pieces as, do we need this Lego piece? And the other thing I like to try to solve is, do they have a great and deep user base that, might want to try Avalanche, right? So if you think of Aave, you think of Curve, and you think of like Instadap and Alpha Homora and all these applications that are deploying on Avalanche, which are real Ethereum based applications, PowerSwap as well. They have deep user bases that are very comfortable with their products, that really enjoy the experience. And, I felt, and the team felt, and a lot of people feel, that by using those same products on Avalanche, they're only going to love the experience more because of all the things you probably talked about on previous episodes, the, sub-second finality, the great UX, just the cheap fees. You're in DeFi and you're just clicking buttons and you're not worried about how much it costs. It's great. So, we did feel that bringing over those applications and their users to try out Avalanche would be a nice showcase. And that's been the case. We've seen in active wallets, we've seen a 20x jump in the last three months. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing some more wallets, transactions per day, similar type of phenomenon. So we are getting users to try the chain, and ultimately Avalanche Rush is an incentive program to help acquire users for the chain. And after you acquire users, really what you're trying to do is acquire developers, right? And the way to acquire developers is have activity on the chain. Because if you're building the coolest, application in the world, the likelihood of you deploying it on a chain that has minimal usage is low. Mm-hmm. So, it's sort of like solving a marketplace problem where you have two sides of the marketplace.
And we're fortunate because you mentioned, just real quick here, we're fortunate because, as you mentioned, we're getting all of the Lego pieces in place. And there's like this emergent phenomenon where something this one can't kick off until this one's there, and this one can't kick off till this one's there. But then once they're both there, you get this effect. And I witnessed it at the very beginning when we first launched our C chain before Pangolin, really. Pangolin was the first important Lego piece, in my opinion, that fell into place. Before Pangolin, I remember trying to advocate getting developers to build on the chain, and they just wouldn't do it because nobody else was there, right? It was the network effect. Everybody builds on Avalanche because everybody's building on Avalanche. Well, nobody was building on Avalanche because nobody was yet building on Avalanche. And it was I remember at the time kind of not being frustrated, but just sort of having that awareness of like, wow, we got to get some other primitives in place before other people are going to want to play in the playground. And Pangolin was sort of the first one that kicked off, in my opinion. I mean, now we see it accelerating, right? When Chainlink locks in, when this locks in, when that locks in, then all of a sudden, the value of the network grows for everybody, and it attracts all these other people. And now we've got this network effect where there's just so much happening. So I had like 100 questions while you were talking. One of the ones I was thinking is, well, in your opinion, what do you think the ratio is right now of dApps that are like real dApps, good quality dApps that are launching right now, native versus porting over from ETH? What percentage wise do you think is happening?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably, like just taking like, the ones that have decent traction. It's probably like a 65 or 70% native versus non-native. And, our focus going forward is like, we're encouraging non-native projects to deploy, but, we're pursuing native projects much more aggressively now that the largest Ethereum applications, or most of them, have or are coming over.
That's what I liked about Trader Joe's Avalanche Rush incentive program. They're incentivizing native dApps, which I'm sure you know. I just thought that was very clever and very that was noteworthy.
You're going to see a lot more of that going forward. Like, with Yieldiac, we're also doing a bounty program for a custom built aggregator. So there's going to be a lot more incentivization of building stuff on Avalanche to be native. Just the initial push was mainly focused on getting, number one, it's also credibility, right? Aave in particular brings a lot of credibility. Absolutely. And they chose this chain versus, a plethora of chains that they could have chosen. And that's, that's a signal to a lot of other players to come also.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the Lego bricks, and I wanted to mention that you can write in to be a part of the show on Twitter every week. We usually put out a tweet that mentions who today's guest is and is an opportunity to ask questions. And so Twitter user Moonsoon Season has written in and has asked Luigi, what's currently missing or needs more competition in DeFi on Avalanche? So which Lego bricks do we still need to add?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are many that are in process that we don't have, but still I'll mention them. One being options. We really don't have a ton of, or really many option protocols that are robust. So that's one thing. Also a central limit order book that's decentralized, right? We'd like to have that. I know there's things in process there, as well that are very close. Perpetual exchange, that would be nice, right? To trade perps in a decentralized manner. That's also in process, but we don't have it. And then a lot of the other thing is like really gamification. It's less of a Lego piece, but it's more of a fun piece. So we'd like to see more, play to earn games, various things that make DeFi fun, because, especially myself being a DeFi user, one of the great parts about it is it does feel like gaming in some sense, and not in a malicious way, at least in my opinion, but it does, it brings users over, gets them excited. They're having fun. And so we want people to have fun, right? At the end of the day, we want them to come here. We want them to, number one, use all the primitives, but also have a good time.
I know people definitely talk about spreadsheet games, and I'm a fan of spreadsheet games. I can't play too much of out of the park baseball because I just get too addicted, and I'll play like 40 hours in a weekend.
It is addictive, but for sure.
We have the spreadsheet games, but we haven't gotten to the MMO RPGs yet. And I think that's
they're coming.
That'll be the next step.
Yeah, there's some cool plans there. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen there. I mean, in particular, but also we also have like a really nice developing NFT ecosystem. Maybe there's too many at this point. My Twitter mentions are just like constant. Luigi, please support our NFT project. But I'd like to see it. I'd like to see more innovation, and that's something that we're pushing hard. We're pushing people hard to do, whether that's in DeFi or NFTs or anything. Like, we want people to push the envelope in innovation. And generally speaking, in crypto, during bull markets, you tend to see relatively a little bit less innovation because there's a lot of money to be made by forking protocols and things like that. So we're pushing people to innovate. That's what we want to see. That's what's exciting. That's what will make the space and Avalanche grow even further.
Yeah, it really just makes me so happy to think how far we've come since we launched our mainnet.
Yeah,
13 or 14
I joined.
Crazy.
I joined the beginning of May. I think it was May 3rd.
You have brought the fire, man. You have brought the absolute fire. You are like, You're like one of the best people on the entire team. I genuinely mean that, man. You have brought.
I appreciate that, man. I don't know about that. The team in general is very strong.
Oh, it's
And I enjoy
outrageous. It's
working
the
with
best
them.
team I've worked on. Yeah, but you've brought some
Yeah.
super fire. I'm very impressed. So you bring,
Thank you.
yeah, you touched on it. And I don't know if you want to circle back to it and give a high level architecture, or perhaps you already did, but I want to, of course, talk about Avalanche Rush. We sort of
Sure.
very briefly touched on it, and you described what it was in passing, but I think it deserves more focus and credit than that. Why don't you sort of describe to us what is Avalanche Rush and how did they come into focus and how are we doing? Just the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah. So Avalanche Rush was essentially, a user and developer acquisition program. Like I said, when I joined and when we talked with the team, we got together, surveyed the landscape, was able to use Pangolin and other applications that are really great. And, I said, look, this is a really fascinating experience for DeFi. I think people will like it. They'll enjoy it. It's EVM compatible, so it's easy. It's easy to port some of these applications over to Avalanche. Our infrastructure is really robust when compared to other chains, right? When you think about RPC nodes going down all the time and other chains and all these other things, I think a lot of that stuff has been thought about. And so, surveying the landscape, we thought it was a good environment for this. And, then it was like, okay, well, what's the best way to get a bunch of users and developers quickly to Avalanche to focus on this ecosystem, help build it. And, as I said before, liquidity mining is a decent technique to attract users, especially when you have really good bridging. And, obviously, we have good bridging, quote unquote. So we have some good bridging, and by having that good bridging, that makes the experience so much better, right? Because users can quickly get over. Anybody who hasn't used the bridge, the user experience is wonderful. You have confirmations throughout the process. That you feel safe while you're using it, not like somebody took your money and you're never going to get it back, and you're searching at the block explorer for 4 hours trying to figure out what happened. So, we had good bridging. Chainlink oracles came live, and it was a matter of bringing over users and developers. So, we knew that solving that problem would have to be a two-step process. First step would be getting users, because as I mentioned before, developers typically don't develop the best in-class dApps where there isn't a lot of liquidity, volume, and users. And so the best way and the fastest way to get users over quickly was to bring over applications that they use already, that they enjoy using, that they feel comfortable with, especially in decentralized community or decentralized world, with smart contract risk and things like that. Having them be able to, let's say it's Aave and they've been using it for a year and it's got, 10 audits and has been battle tested, they'll feel more comfortable with that application, right? Even institutions, this isn't only a user thing, this is also an institution thing. So, just given some of the relationships I had in the space and others on the team, we're able to start conversations with a lot of these blue chip, I call them blue chip Ethereum applications, and really make the case that Avalanche would be the best place for them to come, and that we'd be supportive in an open community. And one of the consistent feedback we received was that Avalanche has a great community, and that they would like to open up their community to the Avalanche community. And so it's really a natural relationship from that perspective. And so we had those relationships. We were able to structure and come to agreements with a lot of these blue chip DeFi applications about deploying on Avalanche in a certain time, providing incentives via Avox liquidity mining. And, we were able to get Aave, Curve, Sushi, Paraswap, StakeDAO, InstaDApp, and the list goes on. Sorry if I didn't mention it.
Oh,
any one of your applications.
To remember. The list is too big to remember, right?
Exactly. And so we knew that they were going to deploy. That was all set up and ready. And then, at the same time, we were like, okay, now it's time to focus on native applications, right? The users came over just with the announcement. The users came over, which is fascinating to watch. August 18th, Avalanche Rush announcement goes out, and the activity on chain just blossomed. People obviously excited to go fetch that yield. There was a little bit of a delay in terms of the deployments of some of the applications, and we could tell some good stories about that process, some of which I can tell, and some which I'd rather not tell. But with anything in terms of developing, especially when you're doing it across multiple teams, there can be some challenges, and especially when you're dealing with decentralized organizations and governance processes. So that's kind of at a high level the thought process behind Avalanche Rush. What it entails going forward is really, like I said, focusing on native applications, the ones that we have now, but also using Avalanche Rush incentives as a bootstrapping mechanism for future native applications. So if you have the coolest application and you're thinking about what chain to deploy it on, if you're going to come to Avalanche, you have incentives as a way to get traction really quick. That'll be an option for you. And I think that's a really powerful option. So, typically the menu was always marketing support and a grant. Well, we have those, but now we also have incentives in our arsenal to be able to kind of really attract some of the best native projects and developers, which excites us. So that's really Avalanche Rush. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Sure. I wish you could see this right now. You're not at your computer, but I just pasted into our chat room. Do you see that, Connor?
Yeah.
On the 18th,
what is it?
Basically, I it's the cumulative transaction count on our seat.
Oh yeah.
And I
know what it looks like.
Yeah, it's basically a hockey stick or a wall, right? It goes more than 45 degrees. It's like boom.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a beautiful chart. Yes, Connor, you sounded like you were about to go somewhere.
Yeah, I have another question from Twitter. So Rav 5180485 must be his real name. Writes in and asks, what do you feel could have been done better with Rush so far? Are there any lessons there?
Oh man, there's always lessons, right? We are by no means in any way perfect, but we do make decisions with the information we have at the time, and we try to do our best with all that. I think what could have been better. A few things. One thing that could have been better was being able to line up the announcement with the deployments in a way that was much closer. There was probably about a month, maybe like 5 weeks in between the announcement and the deployment of Aave. So making that tighter could have been nicer. With that said, that would have been pretty challenging to do, considering the ground was shifting as we were moving. But it is a lesson, right? It is a lesson because we do want to, it's a better experience for everybody. So I guess the other lesson was really just being better in terms of communication. Maybe we could have communicated what was going on in terms of that timeline a little bit better. Maybe we could have, also communicated. And a lot of the questions I got off the bat was why none of the Rush rewards were going to native projects, and so that was a failure of communication, on my part and the team's part, because as I have continued to let people know is like most of these rewards out of the whole arsenal will go to native projects, and you're starting to see that, and you'll continue to see that. It's just the initial push was for the blue chips, and for the reasons that I explained before. We want to get the users first. So I think those are two things we could have done better. I think we'll continue to learn as we go and iterate and hopefully get better at this stuff as we go along, and hopefully take feedback and get better.
So another question I wanted to ask, I actually kind of asked this to CryptoFish a little while ago, but it's basically kind of thinking, we're not the first people to do an incentive program. Mm-hmm. Polygon did one before us. Phantom is doing one. I think Solana will probably do one if they haven't already. Binance even announced they were doing a bigger one. So I think everybody really is just kind of trying to like one up each other. One now, I did 100 million. So this other person does 200 million. Then the next people do $1 billion. So what's the end state there? Is it just going to be whoever goes last gets all the users? Or, whoever can have the most money, is that where all the users are going to end up? Is everyone just chasing yields? Or do you think that there's a way for people to sustainably stay in a chain, even if a new, bigger incentive program comes along in the future?
It's a fascinating question. So we announced Avalanche Rush on August 18th. And before us, Polygon was really the only chain that had tried this. There were other applications that have tried it, but no chain really tried it. So we announced ours. I think Phantom and Cello announced on the same day, I don't know, like 2 weeks later. So, and then Solana doesn't have one. And then Binance announced recently, I think, $1 billion. So the question of whether or not it's going to be a matter of who's got the most amount, I think that's less relevant. These are all sufficiently large enough to be effective. I think at the present day, Avalanche Rush is valued at like $560 million or so. So, it's sufficiently sized, so to speak, to really grow out
absolutely
the ecosystem. The point that, what's going to differentiate going forward, in my opinion, is a few things. Number one is the native ecosystem and community that's built. That is the most important thing. Literally people willingly choose to use a protocol that is hundreds of times more expensive than others because of culture, essentially branding culture and a sense of community that's there, right? That's Ethereum. So which chain builds that the best has the best chance to succeed, in my opinion. Obviously, notwithstanding having really good technology, that has to happen. And infrastructure is really important there. I can't stress enough, like a lot of chains are fast, but if the infrastructure doesn't work properly in terms of a bridge or, RPC nodes or, any of those things, like then people get frustrated quite quickly. So I think community is going to be paramount, and that's going to be execution, right? Executing on these programs is incredibly difficult. Mm-hmm. I see various methodologies on what's being done. Like Phantom has a backwards looking TVL metric that they're using to pay out rewards. It's an interesting approach. We're taking a little bit different approach, right? Because we also want to use this for applications to bootstrap their launch, right? Where they didn't necessarily get a certain amount of TVL. Also, TVL really isn't necessarily a metric relevant to all applications. Some games don't have TVL. Some applications don't really have TVL. They just have transactions. So it's there's various methodologies out there, and we're going to have to see who executes best upon the program.
I think you bring up a great point. Yeah, the infrastructure surrounding the chain is also just hugely important. And I think that's where we've made a lot of our biggest inroads since January or February of this year. When users were coming over initially, we didn't have ledger support. MetaMask had very poor multi-chain support. And there was just all kinds of problems of just
API nodes, man.
Oh, the API
nodes
now, though. Our RPC nodes now serve billions and billions of requests.
So half the conversations I had was trying to calm down a lot of applications that our API nodes would be sufficient. Yeah. They were all like, no, you don't understand.
Rate limit. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and I was like, guys, it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And it has been. There's been no issues whatsoever. And this is still an issue that plagues the other EVM compatible chains.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Oh yeah, we've got a setup that literally serves billions and billions of requests. It's architected quite well. Props to
Patrick. The bridge too.
Yeah,
the bridge too. Like being able to get your assets here in a way that makes you feel safe and is quick and cheap, right? That's important, right? Also, the bridge has the Vox airdrops, fix some UX issues there, right? You could get on, you have some Vox to spend for gas. Like, these are all well thought out infrastructure issues that, when you go through the whole experience from front to back, you take a step back, you're like, wow, man, this is a nice experience. And I think that's the feedback that we're getting.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know it's been 1 hour, but we joined a few minutes late, so it's probably been like 50 or 55 minutes. But I just wanted to be aware of your time, Luigi, if you guys want to kind of start bringing it to a close. Is there any final sort of thoughts you'd like to put on a wrap up of Avalanche Rush, or anything we've discussed so far?
On Rush, I would just like to say that, if you are building a really cool application or something that you think is going to be special, reach out to us. We can use Avalanche Rush as a way to bootstrap that launch and get that thing some good uses right off the bat and show what you think you have.
There's an application process, is there not?
There is an application process. I can send you the link to include in maybe a tweet.
We'll put in the description on the YouTube. So yes.
Perfect. Yeah. And people can apply via there, and we'll get, somebody will reach out to you and we'll have a conversation about what you're building.
Cool. So one other thing I wanted to ask is, you've mentioned you're on the phone with DeFi projects all day. You talk to the blue chips. I've been in telegrams with you where you're just like pinging Stanny from Aave all day. And Stanny, when's Aave coming? So you've interacted with all the bigwigs. So I'm really just kind of curious, do you have any stories there? What's the difference, between them on crypto Twitter and in real life? What is it like working with all these big people that we all know and love?
That's a good question. These are really good people, right? Because for the most part, Stani being one of them, like Julian, who's a core contributor at Curve, but also who runs Staked Out. All these guys really, they care about the future of, they care about a decentralized future. That's what their focus is. And they're also just good dudes all around. Met them in person, a few times and just gotten to know them. And they're working hard with us. Like, Stani's going to be doing a panel with us in Lisbon next week. So if anybody's listening to this and gets to, if it drops before then, come check that out. But these guys,
it's out Monday morning. So yeah, we should touch on Lisbon after you finish this thought.
Yeah, for sure. I could explain some of the things we have planned there. But point being that, they're good people, and dealing with them is a pleasure. Some interesting stories are learning some of these governance processes are, is new, for lack of a better word, right? Like, for Aave in particular, we had to, we kind of learned as we went a little bit in terms of what was either, required, which isn't much, but what is kosher, so to speak, in terms of making the community happy. So we were on the Aave grants, I joined the Aave grants community call constantly and was essentially explaining to the community our plan for Aave to deploy an Avalanche, getting them comfortable with our infrastructure, getting them comfortable with our community. And then we literally need to set up a proposal for the governance process, set up a vote, get people to vote for a few different things. One, just to deploy an Avalanche. Two, which assets, what the loan to value ratios would be, collateralization ratios, whether or not they would be counted as collateral, all those things were voted on. And then lastly, and this was fun, but the Aave market needs to be held by somebody, right? And Aave has built out this cross-chain governance process that is allowing them to move cross-chain, but not everything's finished, and you need a solid bridge that can handle message passing as well. So, there were some nuances there. And so we need to figure out, a decentralized way to hold the market. And essentially what came out of this was what's called Aave Guardian. And Aave Guardian was a vote that was put together of 10 multi-stakeholders that are not, Avalanche or Aave. right? But they're core and well-established known community members across DeFi. There's like Maki from Sushi is a holder of it.
Nice.
Meltem from Wars is a holder. There's a bunch of holders. And so that 10-person multisig is holding that market right now. And, that was an interesting process to get through. And also getting the testing of transactions through a 10-person multisig with people spread out all around the world, can take some time. So, you wait for one person to wake up and sign, and then there's an issue with the test, and now you got to restart the whole process. So, leading up to the last few days of before Aave was going to deploy, that was some of the issues that we were facing, which delayed us like maybe a week or so. So, there's some interesting things, but yeah, it's really great to build relationships with these people and these various communities. I'm super excited about, DAOs and decentralized organizations and what's possible here.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So then another thing, let's talk about Lisbon. So the three gentlemen on this call and a few of our other Epic Blockstar coworker friends will be attending Lisbon Blockchain Week, I believe is the term. Bring us up to speed, Luigi.
So Wednesday, we're going to have, Wednesday through Sunday, I believe, or Wednesday through Saturday. I'm not positive if Sunday's included, but we're going to be having the Avalanche House, which is effectively a very large co-working space where we'll be having drinks, refreshments, some music. We'll have panels, and we'll have one-on-one interviews with some developers. We will have a happy hour that we're co-sponsoring with Paraswap, Benki, and Wonderland. And then we're also going to, Epic, right? And then I'm going to be doing a panel with Stani, Munir from Paraswap, and a contributor from StakeDAO. I'll also be interviewing Daniele Sestagali, who's the founder of Wonderland, and he's the founder of a million things. Wonderland, Popsicle, Abracadabra, I don't know, 900 things. I don't know, they're dubbing him the Andre 2.0. We'll see what happens. But Daniele is a good friend, and he was also one of the original co-founders of Tether. So has a really cool background. And we also have some other panels planned as well. But yeah, come hang out with us. Come see us. We'd love for people to come meet us, talk to us. It's awesome to have you, Gabriel, and Connor to explain to people subnets and, building out applications on Avalanche and why it's special and why the EVM and the C chain is not the only chain that's ever going to happen here, but what's actually possible here going forward.
Yeah, I'm just incredibly jazzed. I just found out about it last week, literally. So just like hit me in the face, like, yo, you're going to Lisbon. I'm like, booyah. So, okay.
Yeah, there's going to be some good people there. We'll hang out with everybody. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be very epic. Okay, sweet. All right, then. So any other last minute thoughts, Luigi?
No, I think that's it for me. Just, excited. Thank you guys for having me here. It's nice to chat with you guys in particular. I always have great experiences with both of you, and really look forward to kicking it back in Portugal next week with you both.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you. It's really been a pleasure to work with you from day one. And yeah, like I said, you've just brought the absolute fire. Thank you so much. And like extreme gratitude from myself and from the team at Ava Labs and from the Avalanche ecosystem. Really, you have brought the fire, and I'm incredibly grateful. So thank you. Connor, any thoughts?
No, man, this has been a fantastic episode. Yeah, I'm super excited for next week. As somebody who has not really traveled in the last 2 years, I've been itching to get out of the house for once. And I lived in Europe for a number of years, and I've never been to Portugal. So this will be a real exciting experience. I was absolutely stoked to have the opportunity to do this. And it's going to be a fantastic week. If any of our listeners are there, please drop by Avalanche House, come say hi, tell us you listen to the show, and make our year.
Yeah, we'd love to meet everybody for sure.
Yep. Okay. Well, cool. Thank you so much, Connor. And so thanks, everybody. If you made it this far, you're an absolute champion, as always.
Before we go, Luigi, where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter. I have some weird avatar, and my handle is @Luigi DeMeo. I actually minted the second rarest of Ox Ape
No
So
way.
that's
Score.
that's a Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
Score.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It's a good one. Yeah. So yeah, it's at Luigi DeMeo.
You want to spell it?
LuigiDemeo.
Got it. We'll put it in the description box, obviously, but this is for the audio users. Any other projects you want to me to put in the description? Any URLs? Is there a Rush link? Is there an official Rush landing page?
Yeah, we have the ecosystem.avox.network page.
Okay.
We should definitely put that page, give people information for, which applications are part of Rush at the moment. Also, there's links to the bridge there and tutorial docs.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for joining us. You have an open invitation. If you ever want to come back and chat, or if there's anything you want to plug, just let us know, and you're welcome anytime. Connor, any last minute thoughts? Is that it?
No, that's pretty much it. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at DAS_Connor, DAS_CONNOR.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you, sir. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at CG Cardona, CGCARDONA. Obviously, we'll put this all in the description box below. So again, thank you guys. If you made it this far, you really are an absolute champion. We have an absolute supportive crowd of people who always hit me up on Twitter and let us know they're listening to the show and they're getting a lot of value out of it. I get a lot of value out of it because I work with some of the best people in the entire industry, and just every week I learn so much, and I know that the content we're making just has incredible value, and I know it's going to age very well because so many of the people we work with are going to go on to do even more amazing things, and it's going to be cool to watch these videos in a few years, see where it all started. So, all right, that's it. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week when we film this from Lisbon, Portugal. Maybe Luigi will be on with us in person. We're going to do a bunch of live recording all week long. I'm going to try and capture a bunch of stuff and maybe edit it together later. So, all right, thank you guys. As always, from Snowflake to Avalanche and through consensus to the stars. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time.